There is also an idolatry of thought. This occurs when one's own way of seeing things, or one's community's way of seeing things, or one's culture's way of seeing things is absolutized. Given this definition, there are secular as well as religious forms of idolatry. Whenever dogmatic claims are made about the nature of reality, and those dogmatic claims are given an absolute status, we have idolatry. There are forms of atheism, ironically enough, that are idolatrous. I don't know if the authors of these books take seriously that the scientific way of seeing the world that they advocate has become an absolute for them. Now, please don't hear me wrong. I'm not saying all science is idolatrous. The best science knows that any scientific construction of the world is the product of history. The best scientists know that a couple hundred years from now, 20th and 21st century science will seem rather primitive in many ways. If you know anything about the history of science, you know that happens again and again and again. And so to absolutize the particular way of seeing of a given epoch and to rule out anything that doesn't conform to that way of seeing is a form of secular idolatry. And I've already mentioned another form of secular idolatry, nationalism. And then finally, I note that many people have multiple absolutes, not just one, but multiple absolutes. So that just as one might speak of polytheism, believing in many gods, so one might speak of polyidolatry, having many idols. The antidote to idolatry, according to the Bible, in the Jewish Bible, as well as in the New Testament, and of course the Christian Bible includes the Jewish Bible as well. The antidote to idolatry is radical monotheism. I don't know if that's a new phrase for some of you or not. It's as ancient as the Jewish tradition, as a particular phrase. It's perhaps most associated with the 20th century American theologian H. Richard Niebuhr, brother of Reinhold Niebuhr, who was more famous during their lifetimes, but H. Richard Niebuhr's work may actually be more enduring. And radical monotheism is expressed, of course, in the Shema, the great line from Deuteronomy 6 that is almost the Jewish creed. They don't have a creed, but goes like this: Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one Lord, and you shall worship the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Radical monotheism means nothing finite is absolute. Only God, only the sacred is. Nothing we say about God or the sacred is absolute. Only God, only the sacred is. And that means that the idolatries of nation, religion, family, self, and so forth are all radically critiqued by radical monotheism. One of the most compact, abstract characterizations of this way of thinking about God comes from the contemporary Roman Catholic teacher of centering prayer, Thomas Keating, monk and priest until he got fairly old and abbot of a monastery in Colorado, Snowmass, and known again to tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Christians as a teacher of centering prayer, a form of Christian contemplative prayer. And when Keating speaks most abstractly about what the word God refers to, he says, the word God refers to, quote, isness without limits, end of quote. Now, the limits he's referring to are the limits placed upon the notion of God by human language, by human concepts and so forth. Anything we say about God in some way limits God. He's part of that apophatic tradition of Christian theology, which means a theology that says all our language can ever do is to point to a reality that exceeds all categorization and all the domestications created by our labels.